Hey there, Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Jessica, and as always, I'm joined by my favorite gal pal, Tara.
Hey, Spooksters.
Today, we are doing the second episode of Jack's Haunted Homecoming. It is a series that we watched on HBO Max, but originated on the Travel Channel. If you are interested in watching it, you can watch along with us. And if you haven't heard the first episode, go back because you get to hear some really good information on Jack Osbourne's growing up in the house and the lieutenant dude who apparently really
Scary.
hates Jack. Really hates
Yeah.
him. If you were to have a mortal enemy or an immortal enemy, apparently, Jack has one. So we'll be recapping episode 2. But before we do that, if you want to hang out with us on social media, you can do so by heading over to Three Spook Girls on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, all the places. We also have a fantastic and wonderful Facebook group. It is Three Spook Girls Official. It is a little slice of the internet where you can just talk about true crime and paranormal or whatever kind of suits your fancy within that realm and be surrounded by like-minded people. Another place you can be surrounded by like-minded people is our Discord. Everything is available in the show notes. So if you want to pop over there, we do a lot of things, including we have a book club, which is the Spookster Literary Society, and we host them on our Discord. So if you want to come to a meeting and discuss books, definitely check it out. If you want to help support the show, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/Three Spooked Girls. For little as $1, you get a bonus episode each month. 5 and up get ad-free episodes the day before, and you get our soon-to-be out Gypsy Rose series. We released one of them on the main feed a little while ago. So if you're interested in those recaps, definitely head over there. So you ready to dive into episode 2?
So ready. I'm excited.
Okay, this one is called The Swan and the Royal Standard. So just kind of like a tiny little like 10-second recap. The first episode, it's in Jack's childhood home, which is called the Welder House, and some crazy shit happens there. At the beginning of this episode, they like recap a little bit of it, which is just the lieutenant and that information. Like, you know, the whole part where Jack is like, "You're lying," but like it's more like, "You're lying." So
yes,
polite.
very, very even tempered with that.
Very demure. It was very, I was like, "You're not even that angry." So Kate comes over. Kate has a PhD in spiritualism in Victorian Gothic. I love her. I am obsessed with her as a person and her hair. I was just like, her hair is so cute. And she and Jack start the episode off in his kitchen and they're kind of talking about like what's coming next. And Jack really says that he wants to expand his exploration outside of the welder's house, which is great because he's in England and there's some really old structures there. And he's going to go to one that's not so, like, I wouldn't say like super old, like turn of the 19th century old. And then there's one that's going to go back like 1,000 years. So kind of get a little bit of both in this episode. But he also says that his definition of ghost hunting is documenting the experiences versus trying to debunk or be like, that was a ghost, which I think is great. Like he's not trying to prove anything. He's just trying to like document it and then kind of be like, you can decide what this is.
Right.
In a way, which I like. So now we're going to go to the Swan Theater. Jack used to go there as a kid. One of his friends, I guess when Steve Seagal was there, he like ran up on stage and sang a song with him. So it's like this place that Jack frequented as a child and is very familiar with in like a casual way. It's not some place that he knows like intimately well, but it's some place that he kind of knows. And Kate's like, I actually really love haunted theaters because of the fact that people who typically die on the premises or are attached to the premises are performative and are very passionate. So they typically like come out and are like more upfront. And I kind of agree with that. Like when we've done haunted theaters and stuff, it's always like someone's presence really is coming through versus like, you know, maybe we're only getting like a tap here, a tap there. So we're going to start with what the eyewitnesses were. They've seen shadowy figures, apparitions, and they've also like, you know, when you go in a room and you're by yourself, but you feel like there's someone else or there's like a presence there. They feel that a lot in this place. So we meet a gentleman who works there. His name is Bob Eastland. He was the door manager security guy from 1998 to 2017. So that's a long time. It's almost 20 years that he was there. Basically, one of his jobs was to make sure that he locked up every night and he would be the last person in the building. So everyone's out and then he's going around and making sure all the doors are locked before he leaves. And he said it was like one night and he knows he was the absolutely last person in the building, and he's walking around, and they like kind of like their upper level is called the circle, because it kind of looks like the whole auditorium kind of looks like a circle, but like it's more prominent up in the upper levels, so you could kind of see the circular, like a half circle of it. So he's up there and he says he sees someone sitting in a chair, and they have long hair and a raincoat on. And so the guy, I love how British people talk, like, like how we would just be like, sir, it's closed. He was like, sir, do you know that the theater is shut? And I was like, oh, I love that.
So polite.
So polite. And he goes, he's like walking to him, and he gets about 10 chairs away from him, and the dude just vanishes. When they ask Bob questions, they say that, the entity was like sitting looking forward, didn't look at Bob, like didn't track him, didn't really seem to like acknowledge that Bob was there, just that when he got too close, he left, and that he must be looking at something on the stage. So that is an interesting like interaction, because it's like, I think the entity probably knew, oh shit, I've been caught, I've been seen, but I'm just going to go away. I'm not going to do anything. So kind of not like malevolent, just kind of neutral.
Unbothered.
I like that, unbothered. So we don't know if it's like a residual thing or if this is an intelligent entity at this point. But they start talking about a specific man involved with this theater, and he's not involved in the way that you would think. Like most people would be like, it's an actor, it's a director. No, this is the mayor of this area, and he was the mayor in the early 1900s. The building that the theater is in was the building that the council members would like meet to hold their like council meetings, and then they moved it next door and turned that building, which apparently this dude was like obsessed with and loved, into a theater. And wouldn't you know, this guy fucking hated the theater. His name was Daniel Clark, and he was like, fuck them theater people. This is my building.
Rude.
I know. So he was very upset about it. So they were like, okay, this would make sense why they see like an entity a lot, especially like a male presence, because there's someone who's like real mad that this building didn't stay the way that they wanted it to, even though they got their own new building. They start the investigation off by setting up 2 REM pods, which are basically like, it's like if you get close to it, they'll like light up, and they also have one that's like a footstep detector. So if it gets the vibrations of footsteps, it lights up. They start asking questions like, are you here? Like, how long have you been here? Things like that. They ask them to knock. Like, so Jack will knock. He did this in the first episode. It's a really great way of communicating that he uses like frequently. He knocked, but there was no response. They're like, at this point, they're sitting kind of like in the audience so that they can look at the stage. And I think it's also smart because then they're not accidentally setting off the REM pods. Like if they were standing like real close to the stage, or they were standing like over it, they could shuffle and like you would hear it, or it would trigger it, but they didn't. But as they're sitting there and they're asking questions, all of a sudden the producer is like, hey, one of the batteries on the camera dies, which we see frequently that happens in paranormal investigations because entities will draw energy from the batteries. It's literally like they're juicing themselves up because they might not be strong enough to manifest or be able to interact, but like that energy they can absorb to be able to interact. So he just asked like, hey, are you trying to communicate with us by draining the battery? And Jack, they're very like throughout this whole like series, they're just kind of like, take what you need. Us, from the batteries, from the crew, just whatever you need to communicate with us. And I'm like, Jack, it's so nice of you to offer other people.
This is so nice and so dangerous at the same time.
Right? I think Jack's like, I think we're fine. This is an interesting thing that they didn't talk about or like, I don't know if they talked about in the first episode, but like, I don't think they did. It's Jack talks about how he can kind of feel when there's a bunch of paranormal things happening around him because he gets really sleepy because his energy is being drained.
Ooh, they did not mention that in the first one. Mm-mm.
And I was like, that's an interesting thing. Like, being in if you're in a haunted place and then you're feeling really like tired. I never thought of like the connection of like us being a battery, but apparently Jack has like he's like at an airport where there's like a jack for you to stick your phone into. That's just Jack.
Named appropriately.
Oh, he is Jack. I love it. So they're like, there's an entity that's trying to manifest. So they set this thing up called a geoport, which basically is like AM frequencies. And so it just kind of like scrambles them all up and gives the entity a chance to like use it to communicate. So they ask a couple of questions. They asked who they were and they said, we're different. So I don't know if it's like because they're trying to like specifically they're calling out Daniel Clark and they're trying to say like, we're not Daniel Clark, we're different people. But then they ask how long they have been there and they said 10 and they never really got like, is it 10 years? Like 10 months? 10 decades, like who knows, just 10 could have also just been an age like that's how old they were when they died, so they don't know, but they just know that they got the answer 10. So then at this point they were like, hey, does anyone not like this being a theater? If you could like come closer, we'd really appreciate that. They didn't say it exactly like that, but paraphrasing. And that's when the tracker that has like the footsteps, it goes off. So like they're like, oh shit, Daniel's here, what's up Daniel? And then they give Jack like a spirit box and he starts wandering around in like the upper parts and nothing goes off on the box, but it's interesting that he gets up there and of all the chairs that are up there, because they're like theater seats, so you know they're the kind that like spring up and like they're like in an upright folded position. There's only one that's down and it's the one it's in that area that Bob was like, I saw that dude over there. So it's just like one chair. And like the whole time, like my kind of skeptic ass is like, oh, they did that. But then it was like Jack was so genuine, like, what? He just kept going, but that one chair. And I was like, okay.
None of the crew better have fucking did that.
Right? Like I would have been like, who did it? Who touched the chair? But also it just could be a chair that's broken.
I mean, true.
We've all been to the movie theater and been like, we've seen that one chair that just doesn't quite, like, it might not be all the way down, but it doesn't quite spring all the way up the rest of the other ones. And you're like, I don't want to sit in that chair.
There's always one. There's always
Because then you
one.
sit in that chair and it goes down too far and you're like, why? One of the things that Kate described, or how Kate describes the theater, is it feels really dense in there. There's like a lot of stuff, even though like it's pretty open. The weight of it is pretty dense. And then we hear from another employee. I think this person might still be employed because they didn't put like a time frame of like when they had worked there. But her name is Lizzie White, and she is the assistant front of the house manager. She said she was casually like in charge of this like door, like off stage. And I was like, what does that mean? Like just sometimes?
Just watch it when you feel like it. It's right, fine.
Like, casually. I had a casual, I was like, is it the casual routine? I don't know what it is, but just clarifying. And by the way, that this door connects to the town hall that's next door. Remember, like Daniel Clark is over there now instead of here, but the buildings are connected. And she said that she was working at the stage door and she heard a noise and it sounded like a loud, squeaky, creaky door opening. Like think horror movie entrance, like creak, or like I think we have a sound effect on our show that does the same thing.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like when there's a mid-roll, that's what the coffin opens.
So you hear this loud creaking door open and then shut, and then she hears like the floorboards creaking, because mind you, it's an old ass building of like, she says it was slow measured footsteps, so like someone is walking with a purpose but not like fast. So she follows it, which is like real brave, Lizzie. Because I would have been like, I'm going the other. No, me, I would have been like, let's follow it. But like most people would be like, I'm going the other way. But she says she follows it and she goes through a door and she looks kind of across the room. And in the corner, there's a silhouette of a man standing there. And I'm like, ooh, terrifying. So Jack and Kate go a little bit into the other building and look, and then they come back and then they go upstairs and there's like a living quarters up there, which was like the theater directors typically live there. There's like a whole like apartment type situation. I don't think I can actually fully say with confidence that they don't use this anymore, just by the state of the bathroom that I'll talk about in a minute. But now it's being used for other things like housing costumes, things like that. So Jack opens this door and there's like a burst of cold air that just hits him. And he says like, there's just a rush of cold air. And I was like, my debunking ass was like, well, maybe it's just you opened the door and it was cold in there and the air rushed out. He doesn't go, it's a ghosty. I just want to point that out. But he just calls it out, which goes back to his like just documenting things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They go in there and they're like, this room has a weird vibe. And I was like, ooh, what's the weird vibe? And then they immediately like clarify it. They're like, it's an oppressive vibe. It's like, oh, good. Because weird could mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so they're asking for Daniel Clark. Kate asks if someone would touch her. And then she says she feels like someone like, lightly tracing their finger down her leg, which is gross. Daniel Clark, if it's you, don't do that. That's rude.
You pervert. You
Right?
perv.
You could have tapped her on the shoulder, on the hand, patted her on the head, rubbing her calf. Weirdo.
So here's what you're telling me about this guy so far. He's salty, he hates the theater, and he's a perv.
So far.
Yeah.
But my
Okay.
other thought is this could also just been like a child, and then it would also
Oh.
just be like
Okay, I won't
childbirth.
hate him yet.
But I am in team salty, I hate theater, and a perv. Like, I'm team that.
That's our narrative.
Yes. So they're like, we got to get out of this room. And so they leave the costume room. And then they just go into this random room that just like someone has taken like their hands and dipped in paint and just like put all around the room. There's nothing else in this room but these fucking hands on this wall. And they're like, what the fuck is this? And they immediately were like, the fuck out. Like, we're done. We're not fucking with the hands on the wall.
No,
I was
bye.
like, this is a horror movie starting.
See, they have enough wherewithal. They're like, okay, our survival instincts kick in. We're leaving.
Right. It just was like, and I mean, maybe it has like a cute like story behind it. Maybe it's like all the actors, all the leads who've ever been in plays have like put their hand up there and signed it or something like that. But just to wander into a room that just has hands painted on the wall is fucking creepy.
Yeah, especially when you're in the middle of an investigation at
In night
night.
vision.
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like night vision literally makes anything scarier.
Oh,
That's why
for sure.
that's why found footage uses it so much. 'Cause
Oh,
it
for sure.
just
Cause it's like,
adds.
I also love that you never know what the color of something is in night vision. So it's like a black wall with like white handprints. And really, it's probably like a nice blue wall with like pink handprints.
Right. Not
Something
threatening
super
in the
sweet. Like,
daytime.
and you're like, oh, okay. But at night, fucking creepy. So then they go into this gross ass bathroom. This is how I know someone's not living there. It's like it literally looks like someone was murdered in the bathtub just of grime because it's probably hasn't been used and it's just like decades of dirt like piled into this bathtub. And it kind of looks like someone may have like poured something down it. Like maybe they had like a bucket of water or something and tossed it in there because it's like the way the dirt is, it's kind of like it's just gross. Just watch it and you'll understand. But they have like a REM pod in there and like the temperature is going down and everything. So they take it back into the gross costume room again. They go back in there because that's where they felt the most energy. Kate kind of describes the energy in this room as being really like threatening and malevolent and masculine. And Jack puts the REM pod down on the floor. It kind of goes off, but I didn't know at that point if it was like Jack moving around or what was happening. But then Jack starts feeling pressure in his face and he's like getting a headache and he feels dizzy and not good. And then Kate's touched again on the leg, like just keeps getting touched on the leg. So yeah, pervy Daniel. So they were like, this room isn't welcoming. We're going to go. We're just toodle blues. Like, no.
Bye.
Which is great. Like, I love that they were like, we're out. To find out the last little bit of the Swan Theater that we find out is that Kate and Jack are the only two people who've ever investigated it. They were like, we are the first and only. And I was like, well, yes. But I think people should go, but people should go. But
Yeah.
now we're going to our second location, which I am super excited about. It is called the Royal Standard. It's a pub, and it is actually the one that like Jack and his family like go to when they're in town. I got really sad because as I was watching this, like in real time, Ozzy Osbourne, like it has just been announced that he's wheelchair bound now.
Yeah.
And they like announced his last show ever and things like that. And so I was just seeing this picture of him and Jack like eating at this pub. And I was like, oh, but I also want to put this feeling in here. They do interact with entities. I'm going to spoiler, but my thought is how many times have these entities like seen Jack? Because they go all the time.
Right. They know all the regulars. It's fine. They're like, what up, buddy?
They're like, this dude came back with cameras.
Who's your friends? What is that?
Right. So a pub or a free house. This is the oldest one in Britain. It's like 1,000 years old. It has survived. Kate's telling us like the history of it has survived a Viking invasion, the Norman conquest. It was a meeting point during the English Civil War for the Loyalists. So it's like got a lot of history, which means its walls could talk. Things that have been seen here is there are shadowy figures. There's a man who is said to have been killed by the Earl of Barrymore in 1788. Basically, he was crushed under the wheel of his coach and died in the building. And I don't know, like they keep saying he was killed by it. And I'm like, was he killed by him, or was this an accident, or was like the dude like run him over? I don't know, but it's one of those two. I lean towards the run him over camp because they're literally like,
Yeah.
they're like, he killed him. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it was an accident, because you could accidentally run someone over if you didn't see them.
Probably intentional.
Yeah, it sounds like it. There is also, during the English Civil War, there were these 12 cavaliers who were there and they were loyal to the king. And the people who were called the Roundhead Force came in and took these 12 men out and basically like imprisoned them for a little bit and then executed them and then put their heads on a spike in front of this bar, in front of the pub.
That's for good energy. Okay.
Super great energy. Here's the sad part of this is that one of these 12 cavaliers was the drummer boy. He was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And it is said that in the car park or the parking lot, he can be heard playing the drums. And this is actually one of the most frequent, like kind of like hauntings that they have, as you hear like a rhythmic drumming in the parking lot. They also see a woman who just like wanders around and walks through walls. And they have their own moaning myrtle.
I love this. One of my favorite parts of this whole thing.
It's just oh my God, this exchange. They're like, there's a woman who haunts the toilets. And Jack goes, I think I've heard of this. And Kate goes, it wasn't me. I was like, they're friends at this point. Like, they're not just doing this. This is hilarious. But yeah, I was like, oh my God, they have a moaning myrtle. I was like, that's where you want a ghost, right? Like, you want like a random ghost in the bathroom because it's in a pub and it's funny. And you're like, if I was a ghost, like stuck in a pub like that, I'd be like, I'm going to just haunt people, like prevent them from getting like the toilet paper. So it's like frustrating. I would just fuck with people.
Take all the rolls.
Yeah. They'd be like, the toilet paper just like literally went away.
Take the paper towels. It's right. Fine.
Just pump all the soap out onto the counter.
Oh my God.
They're like, why is there no soap in the bathroom? Oh, damn it, Jessica.
It's our damn ghost.
I would write my name in the soap. I'd be like, my name is Jessica. Please call me that. Or Jess, because like, let's be honest, that'd be a lot. So then we meet a woman who worked at the bar. Her name is Louise Saunders, and she was a bartender from 1997 to 2003. She said one day she like clocked out, left the bar, walked through the front door, went out she's like, I live down the street. So I was just like, gonna walk home. And she's like, I get out into the car park and I hear drumming. And she's like, I fucking took off running. And I'm like, valid.
Yeah.
But if I also knew that it was if I knew the lore of it, I'd probably just be weird and dance along to the drumming. Like,
oh, yeah.
I'd be like, you get it, little boy. You're still doing your job. She said she had a friend named Kelly who was there. And while she was working, she'd always like feel creeped out. And like, she felt like she was never alone and that something never wanted to leave her alone, that there was always like a dark figure standing like by her. So like I imagine her like at the bar and like she looks at the other end and there's like a dark figure there.
Mm-hmm. Like out of the corner of her eye too. Ew.
And they said that it felt foreboding. And I was like, maybe he just had a crush on her and was like, ooh, Kelly's here. I'm going to go watch Kelly pour drinks. Like, I want to look at the happy side of it.
Yeah, right.
Right. And also maybe it's the guy who got ran over by a carriage and just needs someone pretty to look at because his life ended sad.
Could be.
Now we're going to meet someone who I really enjoyed. Her name is Swan Friend. She's a medium. And I love how she spells her name because she's like from, I believe, Ireland. It's Sian. And I was like, ooh, I like this because it's different than I've ever seen. And just like Ryan in the first episode, knows nothing about this property. She actually says that she like agreed to do this like sight unseen. Like she doesn't know the name of the place. She literally just was like, went to an airport, got on a plane, got picked up, and then just was driven to a place. And I was like, that's so trusting.
That's so brave.
Yeah. And so basically, she wants to do a seance, which I loved and saw. It was great. And Jack talks about how, like, sometimes doing a seance before you do an investigation actually, like, primes the location and gives the entities a little bit more energy to come out and communicate, which I was like, that makes sense. So again, Sean is not aware of what she's getting into. She hasn't gotten like a history lesson on this place or anything like that. Oh, and we also find out right before they start the seance is that the timber used to build this pub was actually from an old ship. And part of it is literally like still looks like the hull of a ship on the inside.
Yeah.
He's like
Mhm.
tapping it. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Also, you're saying it's an old ship 1,000 years ago. How old is this wood? How, like, my
Right?
mind literally went, how do they preserve this wood?
They had to
Because
have done something.
we got houses here that are like 20 years old, like rotting away.
Falling
And I'm like,
apart.
what is happening? So they sit down to do the seance. And I think it's really cute because it's like they're all like just touching like fingers. Like maybe like one finger is like, oh, like one pinky is over another pinky, but they're like I like this because I feel like we traditionally see like seances where everyone's like holding hands. And then I think people feel trapped because they can't like
Mhm.
pull their hand away. I really like this whole pinkies touching thing where it's like if someone really was like on the fuck out, they could just pick up their hands and there's no like holding them in place. So they start that, but it's so funny because like they start and they're like Kate and Sean are just like in the moment and you just see like Jack like peek out like what's happening
Can you
like
blame him?
no, but I loved it because it was like I was like it kind of reminded me of like I mean childhood trauma for me, but like praying at dinner, like where you're like everyone's holding hands and praying, and then there's like the kids around the table like you opened their
Mhm.
eyes, and they're like, how did you catch them? And you're like, God damn it. Gave that vibes. So they start doing the seance, and she says that she feels the presence of a little boy and that he's very hungry and he's unclean, but he's like 8 years old. She hears like tapping, but like she can't get it to manifest again. Also, she gets this name Thomas that comes through. And I want you to like the way that Sean does things is information just comes to her and she says it out loud. It doesn't necessarily mean it's linear. So it doesn't necessarily mean like everyone, it's like the same entity is talking to her. She says about the 8-year-old boy that the boy feels like he's stuck there. And then she feels the presence of another person, and it's a man, and he's standing over by the fireplace, and he's in his like 50s or 60s. And she says he looks like he's like, I love the literally the term they used was farmish. I don't know what that means. I guess he's just like a farmer.
I guess
Um,
so.
but they're
Outdoorsy?
like, that he's farmish, but not a farmer. And I was like, okay.
So
At
probably,
this point
like,
in
outdoorsy.
time,
Okay.
Kate's right hand gets cold, and Sean asks the entity to like push the like into the whole circle. But then Sean starts focusing on something. She goes, I see a person who has a scar. It's like on their side. She actually like pauses and says like where it is. It's like right at the base of the ribs, like the top of the ribs, and goes upward. She's getting the name Annabelle. And Sean says, I've got some information about someone in the room who just got some really bad news. It has to do with like heart tablets or pills or someone having a heart issue. And she's just like, this is what I got. So then the seance is concluded and they like hug and Sean leaves. And then all of like the producers and the camera people are like all Twitter pated. They're like, oh my God, guys, come here, come here, come here. And so Jack and Kate go into this room because throughout that sequence, they keep flashing to this like one cameraman, which they do not do throughout this series. It's not like something that you see camera
Mm-mm.
people often. Like you
Mm-mm.
might see them if they're like swooping around to like look at something really quickly and there's like a camera person there, but it's not like they focus on camera people. And there's a cameraman there and he's like, my brother's name is Thomas. And he's like, he goes by Tom. He has that scar. They said he had heart failure, and I'm like, did he die? I don't know. I'm unsure. And that he has a daughter named Annabelle, and the
Crazy.
cameraman has been going to get testing to see if he has the same like markers for heart failure. And I was like,
So crazy.
ooh. And like, there's no way. Like, even if people are like, oh my God, like they fed her all this information about this location, there's no way that they even thought to give her like information on a cameraman.
Right. Why would they do that? Like,
Right.
not
So I was
relevant.
like,
Yeah.
ooh, that's so like, I got the chills watching it. I was like, oh my
Mhm.
God, so
Right.
great. So they start into the investigation into this. They're like, this is crazy. And they start doing this thing called the ETIS method. I believe that's how it's pronounced. They said it with an accent, and you know how terrible I am at pronouncing names.
Close enough.
Yeah. And basically what it is they put everything into night vision, like the cameras and stuff. They like blow out all the candles, which by the way, they use a lot of candles in this episode, and I'm really happy about it. In fact, at one point, Jack comes running in, and all he has is a candle. He doesn't have a flashlight; it's just a candle. Like, that's not the most efficient way to light your way, sir. But okay.
True.
Huge. Yeah. So Kate is sitting in there alone. And so how the method works is that they put like sound like deprivation, like completely like noise blocking headphones. They put like a real puffy like face mask. I was like, ooh, that looks like you would sleep so well in because you wouldn't be able to see shit out of. And so basically what it's supposed to do is put you in a space that you're only relying on your third eye. That like whatever you're seeing is in like the spiritual realm. And this is true. A lot of times when we watch like ghost shows, a wind rustles a page on a desk and we're like, ghost did it, but it's like the wind, right? But this way it's like relying on the senses that are like that aren't there. Like you can't hear, you can't see, so it's just like feeling. And obviously they're monitoring them. They're not just like, they're not assholes and just throw them into this place by themselves with like a camera. This isn't this isn't Aaron being sacrificed to demons, people. This is like legit. They're like watching him. The other person, so like Kate goes first and Jack's on the outside. He's asking the ghost questions while this is all happening. So they're sitting there and Jack's asking questions like, let yourself be known to Kate, blah, 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 all those type of things. And then all of a sudden, Kate just like takes off the headphones, pulls the thing off, and she's yelling, stop it, stop it. And she's freaking out. But right as this is all happening, the monitors like freeze and go out. And they were like, we just asked them to like communicate with you and this happens. And Kate's like, oh my God, it felt like this. And this is where Jack goes running in with the candle, by the way, guys. He just picks a candle up from the side and runs inside with it. And she said it Kate said it felt like someone was like basically screaming inside her head. There was like a ton of pressure and it was super angry. So they were like, oh God. And then at exactly this moment, there's a thud upstairs. They're like, what the fuck? And then I was like, oh, they're going to go upstairs and investigate that thud. They don't
Nope.
ever,
Mm-mm.
ever go
Like,
upstairs.
we
to
got enough
investigate the thud.
problems. We don't need
Right?
that.
So then Jack and Kate like switch places. So Kate kind of like, she'll be in a room and she'll like, even when that is, she'll have like the REM pod set up and things like that. Jack goes in and is just like, it's just Jack. Like, if, sorry, that was for Will and Grace reference on accident. It's just him sitting in a chair. It's just like how he's done this. And Kate starts like, he gets in there, he puts the mask on, he puts the headphones on. Kate's like trying to communicate, like, go communicate with Jack. How long have you been here? Things like that. And she actually instructs the spirits to go take Jack's energy. She's like, go get it. Take it a little bit. And then Jack is like, he starts so he's talking like as this is happening, like letting people know. And he says, she just directed them, like, go get Jack's energy. And then all of a sudden, Jack's like, I just see these objects coming towards me. I was like, they listen to Kate.
Yeah, they like her.
Mm-hmm. Jack says that he sees a barmaid with a white apron and dark hair, like standing like near him, kind of pacing around. And then she asks the barmaid to tell Jack her name. And Jack goes, oh, she's very, very shy. And then he's like, there's a dude that just like pops in, like a guy is there. And I was like, oh no, Jack has had like really bad encounters with men so far.
Right?
Like,
scary.
First we had the lieutenant and now like Daniel Clark, and now this guy. The way that Jack kind of describes him in this moment is like he's standing over him, like looking down. So like if you're just standing in a chair, like standing up next to someone in a chair, like you would look down at them. And then Kate asks him to get closer, and something touches Jack's face. And Jack is like, Jack just goes, something's touching my face. It's so gentle. Like, oh no, my face.
I'd be like, goodbye. I would have done what Kate did, but like, rip shit off. Goodbye.
Right. And then it just is like weird because Kate's like, are you angry or did you die here? Like, do you not want to be here? And they're not answering any of these questions. And then she says, like, just get really close to Jack. And then Jack like is sitting there for a little bit and then he's like, and then he takes his stuff off and he's like, yeah, someone got real close to my face, like walked over and bent over and looked me in the face. And I was like, oh no,
They're just doing
yeah.
what Kate said to do.
Oh, 1,000%. But I was like, this is freaky for sure.
Yeah.
And then Jack like gets up and like demonstrates it. Like he basically walks out of frame and then like walks back into frame and bends over where it would be. And he describes him of having like an angular face with like beady black eyes. And I was like, so a dead dude. I get it. It's a dead dude. Yeah, it's just real. It's real creepy for sure.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where the episode ends, is they're kind of like cleaning up and they're like talking about it. This was a really good one. They got a lot of shit. Like, I feel like in the first location, they got a lot of stuff, but in the second location, they got like actual like interactions. And I bet if they had kept going, there would have been more. And I like that these ghosts were like curious. But my question kind of like is a follow-up to the one, like, had they seen him before? These ghosts probably are like, oh, I know this dude. He comes in here all the time. And then the second one is
possible.
When he comes back as like a patron, are they like, oh my God, it's my friend.
Aw.
They're like, he came back for us.
Aw, I love that.
Yeah. So that kind of wraps up this episode. I'm excited for the third one. And I'm liking this Jack series. Like, good on Jack Osbourne for like doing something that's like kind of in the Osbourne wheelhouse, but like a little different than, you know, what his parents do. And that is a busy ass family.
Oh my God. Yes. All of them.
I know. Is Kelly working right now? I can't remember. I know she had a little bit of a health scare for a bit. And then she had a baby. So, yeah.
So yeah, she's busy at least with her kid.
Yeah. And then Sharon is on a talk show. So yeah, good times. I can't wait to watch more of Jack's. And if the Travel Channel is out there, Tara and I would love to investigate with Jack Osbourne. We would so be excited to like hang out with Jack Osbourne, because like this was this way. If you really like ghost hunting shows, but you don't want the theatrics, this is the show for you. And it's so it's like watching this is what I equated to. It's like the Great British Bake Off, where like things are polite and exciting, but like not crazy and mean. And you know, you're like, oh my God. And there's no sacrificing of people to a demon.
Yes. I was going to say, I feel like if we ever had a paranormal show, it would be this kind of vibe for sure.
Yes.
See, or me just being like, it's perfect Travel Channel.
Right? I think I would be a little sassy to the ghosts. I'd be like, why aren't you talking to me?
And then me and Jack would have to be like, shut up, Jessica.
be like, I smell. Is it me? Guys, do you just not want to talk to me? That would be me in a show. And they'd be like, she's just trying to shame the ghost to talk to her.
And then like,
there's just a ghost that yells, shut up.
Or like, and then Jack like goes out and then he's like, oh, the ghost said no.
Just like, said this, like you two have like a sidebar and you're like, we should just tell her it's not her. The ghosts like her. They say they like you, but you're just a lot of energy. They just need a break. Getting rejected by ghosts.
That sounds like a great TV pitch. Let's do it.
I mean, I'm here. I'm down for this. Okay. Well, we will see you next week for another episode. We hope you enjoyed this, and toodles, guys.
Bye.